Hello and welcome to this episode of the Intuitive Psychology, the podcast. I am your host, one of your hosts, Sarah Gregg, and I am joined by my co-founder, partner in crime, and intuitive goddess, Jill Ritchie.
Hi everyone, the intuitive goddess is here in the house.
And today we are talking about how to navigate shifting your career and identity. And this is a topic that's really deeply close to our own heart. So we want to share our own personal experience. This is for you if you are at a juncture and a change point in your life. Maybe you are in a 9-to-5 job and you're considering a different career path. Maybe you're thinking about making a lifestyle or relationship change, or maybe you are an existing coach, fitness professional, and you want to go deeper with your work and maybe change the direction of travel. But there is an uncertainty around this. How do you do that? You're about to enter the unknown again. And there can be elements of excitement and fear that we both deeply resonate with.
My goodness, yeah, in abundance. If I remember many years ago, we had a childminder, not for me and Daryl, for my children. And her name was Cheryl and she was amazing. And she used to take the kids of a morning. She would collect them from the house. She would collect them from school or nursery. And then she would bring them back home to us at like 6 o'clock at night. Or we would pick them up. So I never actually had the luxury of taking my kids to school in the beginning. I reckon a few years into just being in school, I did when I made the career change. But I used to watch her, Sarah, take my kids away. I remember this memory so vividly. She was walking up my path, out of my path with my 2 kids. And they were so small at the time. One was just in nursery and I think Jude might have been in primary 1. And I watched her look so happy. And I remember thinking, I wonder what that feels like to really love what you do. And I honestly never thought that would happen to me. I thought there is no way I can leave this job that pays me really well, that's it's in a senior leadership role, and start again. Like how that was not even a possibility to me. That was a dream. I never even considered it would come in. Like that's one of those moments where you're like, imagine living that life where you actually liked what you did and you got to really have fun. And just when you were talking, I thought that was kind of the probably the start of it for me, and when things really declined at work. And then I made that change and everything went to shit for me that year in terms of my mum's health, my work, my relationships with people at work. Everything went to shit, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because had that not happened, I would not be doing this where I am right now.
It's so crazy to think of like the different parallel lives, you know, and the different version that could exist of either of us. And although our stories are different, there's definitely some similarities whenever I hear you talk. Like for me, I was working as a business coach for a really a large university, working with high growth entrepreneurs, startups. I was the youngest in my team. I was the only female in my team. I had really had to put myself out there to get that role. I remember actually applying for the position and the head of the department emailing me back saying that she thought I should go for the lesser role, that she didn't, there was such a high caliber of candidates and it was a very competitive process, that she felt like maybe it would be safer for me to go for the grade below. And I remember emailing her back and going like, no, thank you. I know that I'm more than capable of this job. And it felt like my dream job on paper. It was everything that I'd worked towards. You know, I'd got my accredited coaching certificate. I'd built up a lot of business experience working with, you know, big training companies, economic development departments within different city councils. I had this big exposure to kind of corporate small businesses. And this was my absolute dream role. Dream number of holidays, incredible pension package, big kind of like salary, you know, for the age and level of expertise that I had. And oh my goodness, I got there and I was miserable, like wildly miserable. Alongside that, my husband was really not enjoying his work. Friendships were starting to deteriorate. I was frustrated. I was honestly, I was angry at life. Yeah. I felt like I have done everything that is expected of me. I have ticked all of the boxes. I work hard. And yet here I am, like just feeling miserable in what's meant to be this dream kind of scenario where I've, you know, married, you know, I've got a house, like I've ticked everything, but I felt so deeply unfulfilled. And that change for me, which came in a very dramatic form, because I actually ended up quitting my job, selling my house and everything in my house, and leaving with a backpack and my husband, with no idea what I was going to do. Like that's how it looked for me. And if I had have not made that decision, which was 100% intuitively led, like it made no sense for me to do that. Yeah. And it was such a risk. Like other people told me it was a risk, but in my heart, I was like, I feel like I just know that this is my path. Yeah. And it doesn't make sense. And I'm quite cautious as a person. But I was like, this is it. Like, there's no holding me back. I know that I have to do this because I can't continue on this trajectory in my life if I don't. Yeah.
Do you know what's really good though? That Chris was on board.
Yeah, really good.
Like that's good because you were clearly both on the same path, like same page.
Yeah.
Maybe not path, but page and path, I suppose. But he was all in with that then?
He was. And I felt so lucky for that. Like we've been together for a really long time. It'll be 20 years this year. And we've grown together like as a couple. And I feel very fortunate for that. And it does require like, you know, conscious work. But I can remember we'd taken our first holiday in about 5 years. That's how much we were kind of like neglecting our own lives. So we'd been on holidays, but we were going on holidays generally with family, or we were spending a lot of money on like weekends away with multiple friends, but we weren't prioritizing ourselves. So we booked this holiday it was a 3-week holiday to Thailand and then Bali. And I can remember being at this like beautiful resort on the beach. And I can remember like in the pit of my stomach, like wanting to say to him, something needs to change. And it kind of started as a bit of a joke. Over a few glasses of wine, where I probably had a little bit of like Dutch courage. And I said, what if we just did something different? And it started with, why don't we sell the house and buy something smaller or rent for a while so we can have, you know, top up our finances and maybe have the freedom to explore different things. And then as the conversation progressed, it was like, what if we went all in and we just sold everything and we just went on this adventure and we believed that there was a different way to be, and we both fully bought into that.
So good that you were both bought into that, because I'm sure there's people listening to this that one of them does want to do it, maybe their partner doesn't. And I guess first of all, it is about you really recognising your own needs and what you want. We were different in the sense that I don't even know if mine was intuitively led. My decision probably wasn't actually. I mean, in some ways it was, to leave corporate. It was almost like the universe just threw it at me like, we're done with this now. Like, here you go. Because I believe, you know, you'll get the nudges, you'll get the little stones that'll be thrown at you from the universe, a little nudge, 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 and then here's the boulder, boom, blows your life up. And then it's like, totally. Now are you listening to me? That was probably what happened with me, but I hadn't, you know, I wasn't really into the work I'm in right now. I'd never even meditated before back then. But I hadn't. And people maybe listen to this are like, what? I'm like, no, seriously, like, you take me back like 8 years. I'd never meditated. I'd maybe done it and not realised I was doing it, but it was never conscious. I numbed out with a lot of things. I kept myself busy, but I never really tuned into myself or understood that actually back then I was being guided. It wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me.
Yeah.
Everything that was not aligned to my mission, and I believe all of us have a unique mission in this lifetime. And for those of you listening, you have yours. Mm-hmm. We all have it. And if you are feeling what I felt at the time, because I know what that is now that I've done the work, I know, but back then I didn't. It was almost like there's something missing. There's something not quite right.
Yeah.
I feel like I've just landed on planet Earth and like, I'm like, what's going on here? This just feels so out of integrity, out of alignment. I don't feel like myself. I got emotional about stuff. And all that was this call back to authenticity, call back to courage to take the leap. And I probably wouldn't have done it then, had it kind of not been forced on me. My mum at the time was really sick, going through a lot of cancer treatment. I felt like I wanted to be there for her more. She was getting daily radiotherapy for 3 months. So she needed to be driven into hospital every day for 3 months to get radiotherapy. And I wanted to be there to support, notwithstanding the fact that my stepdad's one of those like old school grumpy drivers, and my mum would be more stressed when they arrived at the hospital because he would be like peeping the horn at everyone on the motorway. And it was a big journey every day. It was like an hour there, over an hour to get into that hospital every day. And I wanted to be the one that supported her and took her in. And I was working like a 70-hour work week. And it all just sort of happened. And then I took a little bit of time out just to really be there and support her. And when I went back, I knew I just didn't feel the same. Relationships broke down at work, friendships broke down. That was a tough time. But it was so weird because even though it was tough, and I remember people saying to me, because there was, and I won't go into this detail, but there was a real big breakdown of a relationship and a friendship in work. And I remember at the time so many people saying to me, well, that's the ultimate betrayal, what this person's done, and this must be so hard. And although it wasn't. It was almost like I felt so much freer. I was like, I'm actually getting out of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, this should be the biggest thing that will give me sleepless nights. I didn't get sleepless nights over it. It was almost like I felt free. It was so messed up. But I actually thought, oh my God, I feel lighter.
Yeah.
I actually feel lighter.
Yeah. And I think that is the intuition bit, because intuition often goes against kind of logic, and it's really challenging to step out into that next version and identity of yourself as you kind of move from, I'm Jill Ritchie, I'm a senior leader in a corporate bank, into I'm Jill Ritchie, I'm a renowned intuitive coach now working with celebrities and running a life coaching business. and it was the same for me, right? Like it's a big, I quit my job, sold everything, left with a backpack, and my friends were like, you all right? Like, is everything okay? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do for money? And I was like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Like, I'm and it was like the hardest bit was the questions. And the hardest bit was watching my friends and family sit in the discomfort of me. Really, I was so in my authentic self. Like, not at one point did I attempt to reassure people, because I didn't have the answer, and I couldn't, you talk about having a physical reaction. In that time, I couldn't create a story about what I was going to do. I just knew I was going to be okay. Yeah,
there was a knowing.
And I would just sit, and I can remember being like with my mother-in-law and kind of family, and they're like, what do you think you'll do? And like, one more, and maybe you'll just come back, and you could always, and I just went, I don't know, but I'm actually okay with being with the unknown, and I know that makes other people uncomfortable, that I don't have the answers right now, and I know all of this comes from a place of love, but this is something that I have to do. And it was the most incredible experience because, like you, I'd attempted to do mindfulness at work and it lasted about 2 sessions, and I had done work, you know, my background's in psychology.
Yes.
I've like done a lot. I used to manage a team of coaches. Like, this has always been part of me, but I will be really honest about this. The work that I did, when I look back now, wasn't kind of the deeper work. I thought it was, to a point. I worked on ways that would enable me to control my outside world. That was my work. Yeah. Like, I worked on setting goals. I worked on positive affirmations. I worked on manifesting. I worked on, you know, feeling the fear and like getting over it and pushing through, all so that my external world would look a certain way that would make me feel safe. Yeah. When I went on this journey, I went from not being able to sit in a mindfulness class and having to leave and laughing like a schoolgirl, even though I was in my 30s, to going and living with monks in Thailand and learning how to meditate with them. And I opened myself up to every possibility. Like, I have never, in that moment, felt more in love with life. I don't think there was a feeling like it. Like, everything was a possibility in that. And then comes the practical bit, you know, like, I didn't have a business that I was going to set up. I toyed with different ideas. I thought about, you know, doing a bit of business consultancy, because that was kind of like my specialism, and a bit of, you know, coaching around that. And then eventually I set up the Power to Reinvent. I started to share my journey. And within, I think it was within 6 or 7 months of that little Instagram account being live, that I was contacted by a big book publisher in New York, who offered me a book deal. I went on to publish 2 books, which have now sold over 90,000 copies, like, worldwide. I started to connect to the most incredible people, opportunities. I went deeper with my work. I went on a wild journey of like self-awareness, and the impossible really happened, like, in my life. Like, it really did. And I shared this on my Instagram stories the other day. This podcast that you're listening to was recently featured in Fabulous magazine, a national newspaper here in the UK, as part of their Fabulous list. And in the same publication, about 2 pages ahead, was Chiang Mai in Thailand, which is where I first, you know, started to set up my business. And I thought, wow, like, there's the place that I lived for 9 months, really setting up my business, learning how to build a website, getting photos taken in a H&M jacket in a shopping mall that I then had to return because I was so worried about money and spending money on my business, to now being featured in a national press magazine for a podcast that I get to record now with you as part of my job. Like, the interest in self-development and this work that has been with me my whole life is now what I get to do as a job and a profession, and it blows my mind. And yes, there are people that will not get it. You might not ever get it, but what waits for you on the other side could be beyond your wildest dreams. I don't believe that I'm anything special. I don't. No. I believe I'm someone that took a chance, that had done the preparation and aligned with an opportunity. And I believe that, to the core of my being, I believe anyone can do it. You have to be resilient. You've got to close off the noise, and you've got to listen to your intuition. But if that calls within you, whether it's leaving your job potentially, whether you're considering growing into the next evolution of your business, because that's the start of our evolution, but we both changed and grew through our own businesses. Even starting this was a real, you know, change. We had to say goodbye to our previous businesses and step into this. But just know that there is so much waiting for you on the other side.
And it's one step at a time. I think that's important to mention. You said, like, you're not special. Do you know what it is? I think what makes you, me, the ones that are doing it different, because isn't it only like 1 or 2% that actually that end up doing it, or something? I don't know. There's something, so many. You've got to be in it for the long game. You do, right? And that's it. So when I started, my biggest fear was like the accounts, which still is still a big fear. The account side of having your own business, I still don't really like it. But I was so used to always collecting a wage every month, went in my bank account, pension, car allowance. I had no clue. I was like a child. I'm like, I don't know how to do this thing called business. Like, that was my biggest fear. My fear wasn't actually speaking so much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think, remember the first time I went on Facebook Live and I was like, of course I had fear over that. Like, what are everyone in my corporate world going to think about, like, me quitting corporate and now I'm this life coach? Like, they're going to be like, who is she coaching?
Yeah.
And probably people did. But you have got to go over yourself. You've got to go over your shit, man, because there's always going to be people judging you. If you're going to let that be the reason that you don't move forward, you are going to be miserable. I'm being honest, because you're going to be living half a life. You are, and you've got to get over that. Like, and it gets easier. The more you do it, it's like anything. It's like learning to swim, learning to ride a bike. You can't do it the first time. Even like a baby, when they're learning to walk, they don't just get up and try once. Oops, I fell down. Right, that's it. I'm never going to walk again.
Yeah.
Like, you're walking, right? So they get up, you try, because a baby, a child, they don't have that, oh, everyone's looking at me because I've fallen down for the 100th time today. They're just like, no, because they know it's part of evolution. It's part of their evolution that they're crawling, then they're walking. It's the same with you. It is step by step, moment to moment. You'll fall down, you'll get knocked down, but you have to get back up again when you get connected to your why. And this is why having you'll hear this like, oh, what is your why? Never underestimate the power of that, because if you don't know why you're doing something, if you get a knock or something doesn't work or something fails or someone lets you down, which inevitably will happen in your business, when you're starting it, when you're building it, when you're evolved in your business, if you're going to let that knock you, you're not really going to make it. I'm sorry, but it's brutal, but it's you versus you. Like, I have never, like, I went, and I shared this at the start, I never thought I would do what I'm doing right now. I had no clue how to do it. I had imposter syndrome beyond belief, but I also knew that there was a knowing without knowing. Again, it was that intuition. When I started to tap into meditation practices, these are the things that allowed me to get out of the personal thinking mind and to get connected with my intuition. I was then led on to the coach that I worked and trained with for 7 years. I was then led on to you, Sarah. I started to meet beautiful relationships and friendships with people in the industry that I know and have beautiful relationships with now. I built businesses. I've let go of businesses. I've started up businesses again, but always being led to know that I trust myself, even though I don't have the answers. I trust myself. You know, you mentioned that, Sarah, like, we've both achieved incredible things separately. You with your books, twice published author. I set up my podcast, and this is the thing, you think you need, like, we're in a gorgeous studio right now, but we chose this, right? My old podcast, my podcast, She Loves Herself, won awards. It got to number 3 in the podcast charts globally. That was me in a room in my house with no equipment. I had a mic and headphones. That was it. You don't need it to be all bells and whistles. That's an excuse. You need to just start.
It is. It's all about the action, and it's about the resilience, and it is about the long game. Like, you know, the journeys that we're talking about to where we are now started and were birthed like 7 or 8 years ago. And like, in that time frame, we have achieved like incredible things like in our careers, and that comes with action. It comes with putting yourself out there. It comes with aligning with opportunities, being seen, being visible. And it's about allowing yourself to continually evolve. You know, we started the Intuitive Psychology Association coming up for 2 years ago now. And we started it because we had outgrown our existing businesses. Something didn't feel quite right for us, and we couldn't put our finger on it because, you know, I had niched down and had begun to specialise in the psychology of flow. It was being recognised in academic journals like the British Journal of Mental Health Nursing. I was speaking at universities to like doctorates, you know, to academics, to staff. I was doing keynote speeches in London to, you know, big organizations and getting paid really well for it. I had, you know, group programs, private one-to-one clients. And I got to the stage where, again, it was that intuition of like, I had evolved. Like we talked about the depth of the work. I'd gone so deep with myself. You know, I had done inner child work. I had gone into the past. I was working in a really deep way, but was still probably talking about surface level stuff to a certain extent, you know, journaling, gratitude, setting goals. And I was just out of alignment with it. I was like, I love this and I believe in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, and I still believe in it. And I love the journal system that I created and I still use it. But I was like, I've lost my passion for this. Like, I feel like I've evolved.
You've evolved.
I've evolved. And it's so important that if you evolve, and maybe you're at this stage where you have a business, but you want to go in a different direction and you want to go deeper with the people that you're working with, or you want to move in a different way and you're going through that loss of identity and maybe that second iteration of you, and it's hard to communicate that to others, especially when things are good, right? Yeah. Things in our businesses were both good.
Absolutely. I mean, you're winning awards, you're speaking on stages, sell out retreats. Oh my, people thought I was nuts. But I remember when I did Unearth Your Power with Lynette.
Yeah.
I mean, we did that in lockdown, right? We served probably over 500-600 people in that training. It was wild, right? And I remember having a conversation with you and I'm like, yeah, I'm done with that now. And you're like, oh God, oh no, why? Because it's all going well. But again, I evolved.
Yeah.
And when you do the work, you evolve. And listen, anyone listening to this, if Sarah and I can do this, you can too. The only difference is the willingness and the resilience. You've got to be resilient.
You've got to be resilient.
And also, you don't need to have a massive community. At the start, I had 1 or 2 people, but that's all you need. 1 or 2 people that see you, that get you, that understand you. Find 1 or 2 people, even 1, right? Just start with 1 and just speak your truth, speak your passion, speak what it is that you want into the world, into existence. And once it's out there, it can't help but not start to transform and change. But you've got to take the action, guys. You need to take the action. Your life is precious. Honestly, it is a gift to you. And I hear this a lot being thrown around Instagram, but it always makes me feel emotional when I hear it. You know, the biggest regret of the dying is that they didn't live their life the way they knew they could or the way they knew they should. That's my biggest fear. And don't let that be that one for you. Like, if you feel it, it's because you've got it. You have got it. You are capable. Is it going to be easy? No, but do you know what's harder? Staying in the same position as you are right now because you didn't take the action. You didn't do the thing that you knew you could do. That's harder. Define hard. That's hard.
Oh, that is hard. And I think that is the perfect way to wrap up. Choose your hard. Know that you can do it, but it does take resilience. Be in it for the long run and never ignore those intuitive nudges to evolve into the next level. You never know where that will lead you to.